Okay guys, so today we're going to go ahead and continue with lesson 9.5, where we are going to be multiplying rational expressions. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and multiply them, and then the next lesson after this is going to be division. Okay, now don't freak out. It's actually not that bad. It's literally the same thing that we did yesterday, where we're factoring the problem down and then just canceling out the common denominator. The greatest common factors. Okay. So multiplying rational expressions. So when we're multiplying rational expressions, to multiply rational expressions, you multiply the numerators and you multiply the denominators. Okay. So just make sure that when you're multiplying rational expressions that your denominators cannot equal to 0. So that's why b cannot equal to 0 and d cannot equal to 0. Even when you multiply them. Okay. So just keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and move on to the first example. So the first example, we have to simplify the given expressions. I have 3 examples for you, and these should help you with your homework. You have 6c divided by 5d times 15cd squared over 8a. Now, I know it looks like there's a lot of variables, a lot of numbers, but literally we're going to follow these steps right here on the right side, and these should help you out. So if I look at the steps, the first thing that I have to do is that I have to factor the numerator and the denominator. Now you may be wondering, well, how do I factor these numerators and denominators? They're not trinomials, nor are they binomials where you can do the difference of squares, right? But there's something else that we can do, okay? And literally what I'm going to do makes the visualization of what's happening, I think, a lot better. And then after that, you eliminate the common factors, and then we simplify. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start off with the 6c. Okay, with the 6c. So the c is already as simplified as it can get because it's just c. If I would have simplified it more if it had, let's say, like a power, but this c doesn't have any power at all. Now the 6 here, that is not the simplest form, right? Because 6, you can actually break it down even further to get 3 times 2. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to factor 6 to get 3 and 2. So for 6c, I'm going to put 3 times 2 times c, because 3 times 2 times c is the equivalent of 6c. Okay? Now I'm going to go ahead and continue with the 15cd squared. I'm going to use a different color for this one. 15cd squared. Okay, so the 15 can be broken down into 3 and 5. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply this times 3 times 5. This c right here, I cannot do anything else with it because it's already as simple as it can get. Now the d, on the other case, this d squared is not just a d, it has 2 d's, right? So the d squared can technically be simplified to d times d. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply this times d times d. Okay, and then this right here is the factored form of this over here. Okay, so that's how you factor these out. So now I'm going to go ahead and move on to the denominator. But if you notice in the denominator, well, can I simplify the 5 right here? Not really, because it's just 5 times 1. So I'm just going to go ahead and do 5 times d, and then this d doesn't have an exponent, so it's just literally going to be 5d. Okay, now the next one, we have 8a. Okay, now for 8a, the a doesn't have an exponent, but the 8 can still be simplified even further, right? So for 8, I can go ahead and do 4 times 2. Okay, but the 4 can also be simplified even further. So I'm going to do for the 4, 2 times 2. So I'm going to get 2, 2, and 2. So now I'm going to multiply this times 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 times 2 is literally the same thing as 8. And now I'm just going to multiply this times a, so that way that they're both equivalent. So the left side right here matches the right side over here. It's just in a factored form. So now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go into step number 2, which means eliminate the common factors. So literally anything that I see in this numerator right here, that I also see in the denominator, I'm just going to cross it out. So one thing that I notice is that I have a 2 up here and I have a 2 down here. I have a 5 up here and a 5 down here. I have a D to cancel out with the D. Do I see anything else? An A, any other 2s that I'm missing? No. So that means that here I'm going to get whatever I didn't cross out, I'm just going to rewrite 3 times C, 3 times C, times 3, times C, times D. Okay? And then for my denominator, I have 2, 2A. So 2 times 2 times A. So these right here are going to be my remainders of the whole expression after simplifying. So all I'm going to do is just multiply what I can. So 3 times 3 is going to be 9. C times C is going to be C squared. And then D is just going to be D. So that's my new numerator. And then 2 times 2 is 4A. So this right here is my simplified form of the given expression. And that's kind of how you factor these numbers out. So you're just literally trying to find the smallest possible number that you can multiply to each other to give you the other value. And that right there is your answer. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and move on to example B. So we're literally just going to do the exact same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the first numerator, which is 18xy cubed. Now I do notice this 18 can be simplified further. So I'm going to go ahead and do 9 times 2 because 9 times 2 is 18. And then 9 is not in the simplest form. So I'm going to go ahead and do 3 times 3. So that means that instead of 18, I'm going to put 2 times 3 times 3. This x is already as simple as it can get because it has no exponent, but the y cubed is different because it has an exponent of 3, meaning that it can be simplified down to y times y times y, because y times y times y is the same thing as y cubed. So I'm going to go ahead and get this right here. So literally this on the right side, 2 times 3 times 3 times x times y times y times y is the exact same thing as 18xy cubed. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next numerator, which is going to be 35. Okay, 35a squared times b. So the 35 can be simplified down even further to 7 times 5, which is 35. But the 7 and the 5 are literally just going to be that's the simplest form because 7 times 1 is 7 and 5 times 1 is 5. So I'm going to do times 5 times 7. The a squared can be simplified because it has a power of 2, so that's going to be a times a. So multiply that times a, and then the b is already in its simplest form because it literally just has a power of 1. So then that right there is going to be the exact same expression as what we have right here on the right side. Okay, so that's my numerator. Moving on to my denominator, which is 7a squared times b squared, but the 7's literally in the simplest form, so that's just going to be times 7. The a squared is going to be a times a, that's a times a, and the b squared is just going to be b times b. Okay, and that right there will be this. Okay, so they're both the equivalent. They're both literally the same expression, just written in a different way. Okay, factored form. Moving on to the next denominator, which is going to be 12. 12 can be simplified. Okay, so you can get 6 times 2, and then the 6 you can simplify it in 3 times 2. So that means that I'm going to multiply this by 2, by 2, by 3. Does it matter in what order you put them? No, guys, it doesn't really matter. So we get that. And then the x squared can be simplified down to x times x. Now the y can't really do anything about that because it has no exponent, so you just leave it like that. And we get this right here. So that was all just the first step. Okay? Now, it may seem a little tedious, but the more you do it, the easier this is going to be for you. You're not going to have to do all of this extra work that I put right here on the side. But I'm just doing it for your guys' visualization to help you solve the problem. So now we have to go ahead and find the common factors and eliminate them. So I see that I have a 2 here and a 2 down here. I have a 3 up here and a 3 down here. I don't see any other 3s, so I'm going to move on to the x. I do see an x here and here, so I'm going to cancel those out. A y with a y. I don't see any more y's. A 5, I don't see a 5. 7, I do see the 7. I see 2 a's and 1 b. So whatever's left over is going to be part of my final answer. So 3, y, 5, and that's it. 2 and x. So I'm going to get 3 times y times 5 divided by, oh, I see a b here. 2 times b times x. So 3 times 5 is 15. Y times y is y squared. Okay, and then that's just going to be 2bx. And I tend to put the letters in alphabetical order, so the b will go in front of the x. And that right there would be your simplified form. Okay, example C. Okay, this one's a little bit different because now we have factors. Right? I mean, we have trinomials, which, how do you simplify a trinomial, or how do you factor a trinomial? By using tic-tac-toe or the box method. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to factor this numerator right here. Okay, and I am going to do box method. So I'm going to get x squared minus 16, so something that adds to multiplies to negative 16, but then adds to negative 6. Okay, so that would be 8 times 2. Okay, but it has to be negative, and I have to get a negative 6, so that'll be negative, and the total will be positive because the negative 8 plus 2 will be negative 6. So I'll get a negative 8x and a positive 2x. X times x is x squared. X times 2 is 2x. And then x times negative 8 is negative 8x. So those right there are my factors to go with this one right here. Okay? And then this x minus 8, well, that x minus 8 is already literally in its simplest form, so there's nothing that I can do there. So then that's just already there, so I don't have anything to do with it. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next one, which is this one right here. Okay. So I'm going to get a box. And we're going to get x squared plus 64. So I need something to multiply to a positive 64, but add to a negative 16. So we can do 8 times 8, because 8 times 8 is 64, which it does need to be positive, so I need these numbers to be positive, so it can either be positive 8 times positive 8 or negative 8 times negative 8, but I'm going to choose negative 8 times negative 8 because it needs to add to negative 16. So that's negative 8x, x times x. Negative 8 times x is negative 8x. Negative 8 times x is negative 8x. So I'm going to end up with these two factors right here. I'll get x minus 8 times x minus 8. Okay, we have one more, and it's this denominator right here. So I'm running out of space, so I'm just gonna, I'll do this one right here. So I'm gonna have x squared and it has to equal to a positive 6. So something that multiplied to a positive 6, but then needs to be added to a positive 5. So I'm going to do 3 times 2, because 3 times 2 is 6. And then 3 plus 2 is 5. So that means that's a positive 3x, and this is a positive 2x. So x times x is x squared, and then x times 3 is 3x, and x times 2 is 2x. So here, okay, so then that gives me this factor and this factor, which will go with the denominator. So I'm going to get x plus 3 times x plus 2. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and put these factors and replace them for those trinomials. So I'm going to go ahead and get x plus 2 times x minus 8 times another x minus 8 right here, divided by x minus 8 times x minus 8 times the other denominator, the purple one. So then that'll be x plus 3 times x plus 2. And I'm going to color code them for you guys so you guys know where these came from. So the purple one is going to be this right here, just rewritten in factored form. And then I'm going to go ahead and have, well, this one stayed the same, did not get factored out at all. And then the orange one will be this right here. So I just literally rewrote them. Okay. And then the yellow one, which will be this right here. Okay. So that's what we have. Okay. So now we're going to do step 2, which means find the greatest common factors. So I see an x minus 8 with an x minus 8, another one over here with another one over here, and then these x plus 2's cancel out. Now notice, in the numerator, I don't have anything anymore. That doesn't mean that it's 0. Okay, it's just going to go ahead and be replaced with the value of 1, because it doesn't eliminate to 0, it just eliminates to 1. Okay, and then for the denominator, I'm going to get x plus 3. Okay, and that right there is my answer for that simplified form. Okay, that is today's lesson. Have a good day, and I'll see you guys on Monday.